Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jackie, and I'm from the ECS department. Just to start my talk, I would like to give you just very brief intro. So that's my department, electronic engineering, computer science. And this, I just joined York from fall 2017. So I just finished my fourth year. So it's quite a bit of experience to talk about, even though it's only 4 years. And then I will give you some very, hopefully straight to the point summary about what I really have been doing to help my students learning. But before that, I would like to just show to you my homepage, just in case after the talk, if you're interested in following up any parts, either you can contact me or you can just go to my homepage. I put all my resources over there. So you can just go to ecs.yorku.ca /tell.jackie. So that's my homepage. And let me start my, before I actually start showing the slides, I would like to give you a very quick visual summary about my approach of my topic is about how I can create technology enhanced lectures and tutorials for visual learners. So here I have a gallery on my website. I just simply selected the kind of examples I created and also illustrated for my students. So you can see this is what I call a starter page over here. And then if I click on annotate over here or draw, you can see this is basically some annotations I will actually add after maybe about 20 minutes or 30 minutes of lecture or tutorial to explain to the students how I go from the empty starter page into something that has been explained with lots of insight and also theories or whatever details the student should know. And if you can see, I got actually many courses. You can see lots of different examples over there. So it takes a little bit of time to load the image sometimes. But anyway, so that's kind of very, very quick visual summary about what I do. And let me now go over the slides very quickly. Okay. So that's my title. And then let me just tell you the two main challenges I think students coming into my subjects or into my class they typically suffer from. And it might be similar to your student as well. So hopefully my talk can really help you maybe to some extent. So usually, a frustrated student would say to me, I did attend all the classes, either lectures, either asynchronous or synchronous, either way. However, they really failed to achieve two things. Number one, it's really difficult for them to follow completely. So maybe sometimes they pay too much attention to what you're saying, and then they simply just cannot have the time to actually record my maybe verbal remarks or many things. They, let's say even before the pandemic. So I've adopted my approach even before before we had to move online. So that's especially the case if you're in a lecture hall. Later on, if you want to return, we have to return back to campus. So students will still suffer if they simply cannot get everything you have said in the class. And number two, let's say you cover all the basics about theories, about something the students should really know before they can complete the experiential laboratory exercises. However, what you can cover in the lectures is quite limited because the time is fixed, and also you cannot really go beyond too much. Otherwise, students have to go to the next class. So what I found was maybe the best way is to really create some standalone tutorial videos for the students, so they can really watch those videos before they are ready to do the laboratory exercises. So there are two aspects really. Okay, and let me just say a little bit. Is my approach really applicable to your courses? I would tend to say yes, but of course, if you would like to have a chat, maybe offline, just feel free to contact me. I'd love to discuss with you about my experience. So this is really a one-line summary of what I really want to tell you. So I really try to center around my lectures and also tutorials around detail and visual illustrations on concrete examples. So these are all the keywords of my approach. You got to be detailed. You cannot just wave your hands about, oh, this is something you should know how to complete. To the student, you got to be visual in the sense that you just don't try to just move your cursor around on the slides and let the student imagine what you really want to say. So I really want to draw in front of the student to show them the illustration process. If you recall the several pictures I showed to you in the very beginning, that's really the key about how to go. You can go from some starter page that's completely empty with some maybe starter questions, and then build up the reasoning for the students for the next 20 or 30 minutes, something like that. Gotta be concrete examples so student can always study thanks to the recording, right? And so here is just some summary about the courses I've taught so far at York. I've taught with a range between first year and also fourth year courses. So my students, the minimum number is about 20. It's a very nice and cozy atmosphere. But I also taught very large classes, maybe with 300 students in the big lecture hall. So I believe the approach over here is really applicable despite the size of your classes, really. Okay, well, we'll see. And then, so I would say, as long as there's really something that you really want to teach, then my approach will be applicable. So I'll just give you some example in a moment. Okay. All right. Before I actually summarize my approach, I just want to give you some concrete short example about how you can plan your lecture in my way. I'll just show you one example lecture of mine. So let's say we got some example lecture. For those of you who are not really familiar with programming, I do apologize, but I have to choose some example from my major. But just a little bit like a programming, since most of the courses I teach computer science and programming. Okay, but I'll try to highlight all the important bits you should know. Let's say a very conventional approach to actually teach will be you got to show some slides. Let's assume the following. Let's say there are 3 aspects I want to show to the student for this particular lecture. Let's say number 1, I want to show them some kind of like a model. You can think about it just a piece of program over here, and the program is about how you can define the template for a person. That's all you need to know. Don't worry about the details. Okay, try to think a little bit at a meta level. That's something I would like to show to you. That's aspect number 1, just a model. Aspect number 2, the students should really understand by having this particular program over here, what should be the output the computer will produce. That's aspect number 2. So we got model, and also we got something I call tester. Okay, and then number 3. Number 3 is you may have some background information, for example, calculating BMI. That's the particular detail the student should know, but you can remind them anyway. And then we can simply have some interaction with the student, let them guess what the output should be by executing the tester on the model, right? And so the third aspect will be, so eventually you can tell the student that should be the answer. Okay, the student, of course, the example I chose is a little bit tricky one. So I would expect most of the students to actually answer wrong about the answer. And then, so now here would be how I will approach it. So I wouldn't simply teach them about this particular example just by showing the 3 slides. That's not enough. So for our student to really get an insight, we should really visualize what's really happening over there. Okay, let me show to you. So what I will tell the student is, okay, so now you see the console output, which might be counterintuitive to how you predict. So let's now try to understand it completely. So our number 1, I will maybe show them some tool about executing the program. So I will simply go to the tool, and then I will simply execute the program in front of them. So I'll just confirm with them, this is exactly the output you will get. So in your particular teaching, you may have other research tool to show your students, but here, just one example. Okay, so now that I am pretty sure that's the correct output I show on the slides, so now here comes the critical points. I want to show the students actually how to put everything together for their understanding. Let me give you a little bit demo. This is what I call a starter page over here, completely empty. However, the most important thing for you to see is, you can see one fragment over here. You can see there's one fragment over here. There's another fragment over here. There's just another one over here. I kind of try to combine bits and pieces from the 3 slides actually I just showed to the students, so I can talk about them at one go in the same page, which is not possible, when I do the conventional kind of a slideshow lecture. Okay, and then here I simply tell them, okay, this is the model, and this is the tester, and then this is the final output. So now, how do I visualize them? Okay, I will just use about 1 or 2 minutes to give you some idea, and then I will conclude my lecture to give you a little bit more details for the approach. So I'll tell them that, okay, so let's now take a look at the tester over here. So this is what you were given to actually execute. So why don't we try to use 2 colors to talk about the 2 objects that we are trying to create. So this will be object number 1 over here, and this will be object number 2. And then for object number 1, based on what you learned previously, so let's say object number 1 will be Alan. So that means we are creating an object called Alan, and that will be a person object over here. And then specifically, it's going to be 72 and also 1.72. So what that would do is going to call the corresponding, we call constructor over here. So that's going to be 72 and also 1.72. So this will be the weights, this will be the heights. So that's the visualization for the first objects as we talk about in the lecture. And similarly, for the second one, it's going to be just a completely different objects. So it's going to be Tom, and also is going to point to just another object over here. of type person. And over here it's going to be 65 and 1.81. 65 and 1.81. So you can kind of see what I'm trying to do over here. I'm trying to just do as if I'm actually doing a one-on-one tutorial with the student to really show them bits by bits how they can build up the reasoning for themselves. Okay, and then I'll just move on, and then I can say, so now if you take a look at this particular line, that's really the key actually for you to see why we actually will get a particular output to the console. And then if you see Alan is assigned to Tom, that simply means you want to change the arrow in this way. Alan, rather than pointing to here, is going to point to instead over here. Right, and then if you try to look at the rest of the method call, you will get exactly this kind of output. So that's kind of a really I would say a little bit simplified version of my lecture. Okay, but you can see the idea. I'm just trying to visualize what will be required for students' understanding. Okay, I got about 3 or 4 minutes left. So what I would like to summarize is to summarize about my approach very quickly, and then I can point to you some resources. If you're somehow interested about my approach, please go to my webpage. I actually got lots of examples over there. I'll show to you. Okay, I want to respect the time. All right, let me go back to my main slide over here. So my approach, I got 4 phases. Phase number 1, I call the preparation phases. That's really the most time-consuming and most critical. So the more organized and the more you get prepared, the more effective I think student will be able to understand what you're trying to say in the lecture. And you have to clarify about what example and concept you wish to demo in details. For example, in my case, I want to demo this particular example in detail. That's why I put everything into the starter page. So I got a very good starting ground to actually start with right away without any delay. So that'll be the first phase. And what will be the best way to really get good in preparation stage? I would say experience. Since so far I have actually applied this preparation stage in all my courses, so I'm quite familiar with it. So. Okay, and then you gotta create starter pages, and since they're digital, so that means anything you think you can change, maybe you want to maybe revise the starter page a little bit for the next time illustration, you can easily do that. You don't have to create from scratch. So that's the beauty about being digital here. All right, so after the preparation stage, it's about setup. So here, I wouldn't say too much. I would just say before the pandemic, I also try to apply this kind of a approach for my large class in the lecture hall. So students can see the projected iPad or tablets on the projector, so they can easily see my illustration without any problem. But during the pandemic, if everything's online, I think just having a nice studio microphone would be enough. Okay, so setup stage is not so big a deal. For delivery, I got the presentation maybe on the slides. I can actually switch between my desktop. You can see I can switch between slides and also my illustration and also some software tools. You can have as many as you want to illustrate, actually. Okay, so that'll be the third stage. And then finally, it's about the sharing. So the sharing, the rationale will be any remark or any comments I made during the lecture. I'm kind of trying to make that as a subject expert. I think that will be the most valuable insight for the student to capture. I think as now, since everything's recorded, you don't really see that much benefits. But eventually, once we return back to the campus, I think recording the lecture for your students, if they really attend the lecture but they want to review what you really have said, they didn't have to waste time and try to distract themselves, during the lecture, so they can always watch the recording afterwards. All right, so and then I actually so far let me just share with you some resources, and then I got about maybe 1 minute or so. Okay. So I gave a seminar to my colleagues in the EECS department last August, right before we moved online for the fall. So over there, I actually got a complete tutorial about the rationale for my approach and how you can adapt it technically. So you can feel free to check it out. And then you can explore more examples about my approach. You can see so let me show to you. I got one lecture. Let me show to you here. So this is my lectures page. So you can see so far all my courses, I have recorded them actually for my students study. Not just the student registered in my section, but student from other section or student taking the course later, or maybe even student told me that after they went to the workplace, they can still refer to the lecture. So it's really like a free and open access educational resources for them. Okay. Another one, I'll finish very quickly. Another one is for the tutorials. I also got lots of tutorial videos I created for my students. For example, for the past winter, I actually created this weekly tutorial series for my student. Everything's available on the YouTube, so the student don't really need any login to actually get access to them. So that's if you want to see in detail how exactly I do my detailed live illustration on the iPad, you can feel free to check them out. Okay, all right. I think it's just a few more before I. Okay, and then you have seen this gallery already, which I showed to you in the very beginning. And I also try to communicate the idea in 2 papers. If you're interested, you can also check them out. Okay, all right. Thank you for your time, and then I'll be happy to take your questions.